Still might have an issue.
What?
Maybe I have a lot. That might be better. So you're live.
I'm muted.
I'm not in.
You're not in that.
Let me know when we're ready to rock.
Well, I'm in Zoom right here.
Is it your machine? Hello?
Is it, somebody up there has their volume on.
Well, let me get up. I'll get up.
You muted and you've got the bottom.
Everybody's just gonna have their volume off.
Is it still out there?
Is
I got
that one on?
Is it happening now?
Mhm. I'm definitely signed out.
So Andrew's not on as a panelist, is that, I don't see him in the panelist list. I see Andrew and I hear him, but he's not in the panelist.
Did you log?
I logged off to make sure it wasn't my computer causing the echo.
Okay, and Mimi, I don't see you either. I mean, I see you and I hear you, but I don't see you in the panelist list.
Yeah, I'm not logged into Zoom.
Oh, okay, that's why.
I think it's your computer.
It's gotta be my computer, but I don't know where.
Can you turn off your volume?
Is that better? That's better. It was on projector. Okay, we're good to go.
We're good to go. Good evening. It's Monday, July 11th, 2022, and this is a meeting of the Southborough Planning Board. First, I want to say anyone who was planning to hear the urban forestry management presentation, there was a technical issue with the projector, so we had to reschedule that for August 1st. And my sincere apologies to Christina Bezanson, who was going to give the presentation. Look forward to seeing her on August 1st. So the first thing on the agenda is 200 Turnpike Road. Karina, do you want to update us?
Sure. So since the last meeting, the public hearings for major site plan approval and low impact development special permit, the last public hearing was held on June 27th. On June 28th, we received a submission from the engineer, Mark Santoro, with plans dated June 15th and a stormwater report dated June 15th. They accidentally didn't include the comments, the response comments to Fuss and O'Neill, which we received today. Thank you, Mimi, for pointing that out. As soon as we called them, they sent them over in a PDF. So we'll be getting hard copies for the planning board and then posting those comments up with the public hearing information probably tomorrow. We submitted that information to Fuss and O'Neill and distributed the submission to the town departments for review on June 30th. On September 11th, we received a request from the applicant to continue to the August 1st planning board meeting without testimony. And they're asking for an extension request as well for planning board action by August 5th. There's an extension request form that they've signed when you do the motion to extend. So we'll be following up with them this week to make sure they provide the complete copies of the response to Fuss and O'Neill comments that were made back on April 29th. And get up to speed again on where they're at as far as making their revisions. And we expect Fuss and O'Neill to have review comments by the end of this week on this recent submission. And that's the
Thank you.
update.
Thank you. When was the last time that they were here? That
They were
appeared?
here. I can tell you it was, I keep track of that. So they attended May 9th. That was planning board public hearing number 9. And then we had a planning board meeting on May 23rd. They did not attend. We had one on June 6th. They did not attend. And on June 27th, that was the last meeting. I think they continued there as well, if I'm not mistaken. So the last meeting was May 9th. They also continued at last month's Conservation Commission public hearing for stormwater management and for notice of intent. They are scheduled on the agenda for this Thursday for conservation. I spoke with conservation agent today. I don't think I'm not 100% sure. A lot of stuff happened today, if they continued that or not, but I'll find out Thursday.
Melissa stopped by.
Colleen just updated us that they are continuing conservation also.
As well. Okay.
So they're requesting their 4th continuance on this plan set.
And do you know how many meetings they've actually attended?
Yeah, just give me a second. I can look back. So we started this in the first public hearing was November 15th, which I believe they attended. So let me see here. Then the second public hearing was January 10th. I'm not sure about that. I started tracking, and okay, then January 21st, they did not attend. 24th, and public hearing number 4 was an extension was granted February 7th. I'd have to look at the meeting minutes for that one. Public hearing number 5, February 28th. Applicant not attended. So they might have attended the February 7th. So not on the 28th, February 28th. They did not attend the March 14th. Public hearing number 7, not attended on April 11th. Public hearing number 8, they did not attend on April 25th. So there's quite a few they have not attended. And then May 9th, 2022, public hearing number 9, they attended. May 23rd, public hearing number 10, not attended. Public hearing number 11, June 6th. I don't believe they attended. And June 27th, public hearing number 12. I don't think they attended. And that brings us to this evening.
So of the 13 times we've had them scheduled, 2 we know of definitely they attended, and 1's a question mark.
Yeah, I think 3 times. But I could confirm that by looking back at the minutes.
Anyone else on the board have any comment?
Yeah, this is Jesse Stein. So at what point does it make sense for us, rather than to continue granting extensions, to simply vote to reject the application on the grounds that the proponent really should have withdrawn this application? Clearly they weren't ready to move forward with the concept. So rather than keep wasting our time, why don't we just reject the application and then they can resubmit another time?
So Jesse, I don't know, forgive me, Madam
Go
Chair,
ahead.
but I don't recall that we've ever been in this situation. That we've had, so few attendance of, from an applicant. I mean, I think that might be something, Karina, if you can talk to the applicant and say, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence knowing that Concom was already being continued. That, if we extend to the August 5th, I mean, I'm pretty sure we're gonna have to give another extension anyway. Because I can't imagine we're gonna agree to everything and have whatever conditions written up and ready to review in one meeting. So I agree with you, Jesse, but I think, that personally, there's probably something Karina would need to work with the applicant to say this is where the board's leaning, and it might be best to withdraw without prejudice and come back.
That
Without
would be the
us.
better way to go. If
like
you reject,
voting.
you'd have to come back with a different plan, substantially different.
So, but I wouldn't feel right just not, or rejecting it without them here as well, personally.
Also, in addition, when they sent me the request to continue and request for extension this afternoon, I responded that we would ask the planning board to grant that extension. The extension is just through the next meeting. It's not several months beyond the next meeting like we've done in the past for them. It would simply continue them to August 1st with action deadline August 5th. So it wouldn't be granting an extension beyond that without a chance for the planning board to respond to the applicant once I let them know that the planning board is not on board with continuing.
Yeah, I concur with Andrew that I think if they could withdraw without prejudice, I think that would be the better route to go until they really have it all buckled up.
Oh, you're recused.
So just for the record, they just signed another TNA task authorization, correct, Karina, for 3,000, and they're waiting for the comments back on this submission,
Right.
which is why they explained to me that they continued tonight. There was also some comments that we got today from Fuss and O'Neill, from 200 Turnpike, that they responded to the last submission. And this is the first we've seen them. They got them done back in, I think it was 6/16-ish. But this is the first we've seen them. So we'll be sending those on to you. And then, hopefully they'll have another review done, comments to that one, and then they can show up. Hopefully that can happen in 2 weeks.
Well, I'm concerned because I know comments that I raised at the first hearing have not been addressed 2 plans later. So we don't seem to be making any real progress here. So I would agree with my fellow board members that they should be encouraged to withdraw without prejudice and really get their plan together before they come back.
Right, and Mimi and I spoke earlier this afternoon in regards to this, and I proposed that perhaps I send them an email tomorrow outlining these issues, because we had not yet received these response to Fuss and O'Neill comments that they were supposed to provide a PDF of and a hard copy of with this recent submission. So they had not done that, and when we brought their attention to to them about that today, they quickly emailed a document over, but that's not, with the formal submission. It's just it's not within the procedure of how we normally operate.
Right.
So it's my intent to follow up with them tomorrow and in an email and a phone call expressing the concerns that the planning board has and the recommendation to withdraw if they don't step up to the plate by this next meeting, that they should anticipate that will be a request, a recommendation from the planning board. If
Do
you're
I
on
hear-
board with that.
So Madam Chair, I make a motion, we extend per the applicant's request for 200 Turnpike Road code snow removal landscaping contractor facility major site plan approval. And extend grant the request for extension for 200 Turnpike Road snow removal landscape contracting facility special permit for LID to August 5th, as requested by the applicant today on 7/11/2022.
Second for discussion.
Any discussion?
So just as whoever's doing the minutes, just a heads up that I'm going to vote in opposition to this extension.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor? Latrell, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, no.
Houlihan, yes.
Okay,
So Madam Chair, I make a motion, do we continue the public hearing for 200 Turnpike Road snow removal landscape contractor facility major site plan approval and for 200 Turnpike Road snow removal landscaping contractor facility special permit for LID to August 1st at 7:05 PM, assuming that we're going to put the presentation before that. Oh, no, we can't. So it's 7 o'clock, right? The public hearing's up to
7.
7 o'clock.
Second for discussion.
okay. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
So just as a technicality, since I'm opposed to granting the extension, on that basis, I would be voting in opposition to continuing the public hearing. My vote would have been to close the public hearing at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stein. Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, Latrell, yes?
Mills, yes.
Stein, no.
Houlihan, yes.
Okay. And the next thing on the agenda, as I mentioned at the beginning of the the meeting.
I like a movie.
The presentation is being postponed on urban forestry management until August 1st. Next on the agenda is the lot release for 5 Skylar. Do you want to update us on that, Karina?
I think I have that, Karina.
Sure,
or
Colleen. Colleen has the file. We'll let her.
We'll let
Okay.
her try. So Skylar is part of a subdivision that was called Stonehenge 1, because then there was a second one afterwards. We did some research because we got a call from an attorney's office looking for a lot release. They said several lots have been released, but this one, number 5, which was lot 7 on the plan, was never released. So after we did the research, I did find a whole bunch of releases that were done, and they were on, I can actually pull up the page. That,
While you find that page, Colleen, I'll point out that I believe Tom and Lisa Collins, or at least Tom Collins, is in the attendees room. They are the current property owner of 5
Sellers.
Skylar.
they can speak now.
I think you also elevated Sam Stivers
Did I?
accidentally.
Get rid of him. Just kidding, Sam.
So I don't know if you can see we shared on this. So this would be the covenant that you'll be releasing them from. This is basically to finish out the way that was going to be accepted as a public way. And on the side here, these books and dates are all lot releases. I showed some lot 11, lot 12, lot 17. I looked them all up. So the ones that were not, 7 was definitely not in any of the releases. So it is indeed in need of being released. And there's nothing on the books. Everything has been finished on the road. I don't see any reason why you couldn't do the release.
There's actually also a handwritten reference on one of the plans we found that said lots released. Somebody dated each lot saying lot released with a date. And one of the plans says, if you scroll to the first page of this covenant, Colleen, I think it said 1982 or something like that. It's on the page there.
Yeah, it looks like this is the plan she's speaking of. And there's a bunch of very light dates in here. And they're a little bit different, but they're around 1982. The subdivision was from 1981.
So I know in the past when this has come up and documentation wasn't found for a lot release, there was an existing lot with a home that's been on it for this length of time that in the past it was voted to release the lot to close out the information.
Is a home already on the lot?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's an existing house.
Since 1982.
So how did they find out? Like the title just isn't clear or?
Yeah, it's a title search that they do, and it comes back showing that the lot was
there's a
never released. I
Okay,
forget what the technical term is.
all right.
And again, the homeowner is on the, as a panelist right now, the Collins. If you have any questions for them.
All right. Does anyone on the board have any questions or comments or? No.
So, sorry, just for my edification, this was a previously approved subdivision, and the original proponent just never came forward for the lot release in the normal timeframe that they would have. Am I correct?
I don't know we can
Right.
say that. I think we can say that there's handwritten date on a subdivision plan that says the lots were released on each lot. Releases were found for the lots that Colleen looked up and listed on the side of this covenant here. However, there was no document that we could find for number 5, Skylar, lot 7, for that release.
So it's lot 7 on the plan.
Yes, lot
Is it-
7 on the subdivision plan for Stonehenge 1.
Are there any other missing releases in this plan?
There are a few that I couldn't find either. 2021, I think these here, 20A and 21A. We thought about coming in with all the lots to be released, but we wanted to get the board input before we did that. We could certainly release the one tonight that's been advertised, not advertised. And then you can comment on the rest of them to clear the title.
Nobody's asking about the, other than you, Jesse, but we haven't had a request on the other lots, and I know, I guess you're asking if you should release all of them. Colleen, do you have the subdivision plan that you can put on the screen that shows the dates and the lots? So it's a little bit of orientation. Yeah, do you have the one that shows the dates that were written on it?
Yeah, this is, let's see.
Yeah, to see their.
No, this is just the release. No, I actually have it in my hand and the board has it. They're looking at it. I
Okay.
did not scan it in, sorry.
I thought it was in the Dropbox, but that's okay.
Send that down here.
Yeah, so I know, so this was approved in 1980. I don't know when it was built. But I know like during the 90s, there were so many subdivisions and
Right.
a lot of these like lot releases and even road acceptances kind of they weren't kept up with. And
No.
years later, things were being released and accepted just to try and catch up.
Exactly, and it does look like there were several, at least 3, that were released all on the same date, and maybe it just never got recorded. It's really.
Oh, okay. So
And I can
Andrew
tell
had-
you that Skylar Drive was accepted according to the DPW list on April 13th, 1987.
Okay. So we're, during the crazy time here in Southborough. But
Yeah.
Andrew had a good idea on the lots that you couldn't find a release, maybe send a little note to the homeowner and say, your lot may not be released. If you want us to release it, just let us know, so they don't see their address on an agenda and wonder what's going on.
Well, when they go to sell it, it'll pop up.
Right,
Right.
correct.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
will save them there, but I would want them to know first before we took any action.
So the ones that I found, but that I couldn't find, I will notify those
Yeah.
homeowners.
I'm trying to make them,
I just have one more question.
Sure.
So if we do make that, is it the planning board's responsibility? Like who actually who does the lot release? Like here, an attorney has contacted us. So if we did it,
Yeah, who would register that? Who would file it with the registry of
The attorney
deeds?
asking for it, because the Lisa and Tom Collins were here, they cannot sell their house without it.
Right, oh, okay.
So they would definitely do the report.
So these lots that aren't released, the homeowners would have to,
If
hire
they
a
want to sell
lawyer.
their house, they should be aware of it. I think it would be a nice thing for the town to make them aware of it.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
we can make them aware of it.
right, yeah.
Okay.
And then if they want them released, they'd have to have some means by which to have that recorded with the registry of deeds.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we release lot 7, i.e. 5 Skylar Drive as requested by the applicant.
Second,
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, Latrell, yes?
Mills, yes?
Stein, yes.
Leanne, yes.
Maria, yes. Thank you.
154 Turnpike Road, sign review. Who's on that one?
I'll let Karina
I
do
can
it.
talk to you on that unless you want to,
Okay.
Colleen.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Karina.
Sure. So, 154 Turnpike, the owner of Vin Bin it has applied for a special permit with the zoning board of appeals for more than one sign on a building in the business highway zone. So part of that requirement in town code says if they request a special permit, they need to come before the planning board as a discussion item to get a review. In which point the planning board provides a report back to the zoning board of appeals. We have that standard form that we use that has the 5 criteria that the planning board votes on and then lists any conditions that they want to pass on to the ZBA. I believe the ZBA is meeting this week or next week, or a couple days from now. That's why it was perfect timing to get on the agenda for this evening. So when I was doing a little research on this, one of the things I found in the decision from 2003 was that all tenant signs facing Turnpike Road will comply with the highway business zoning bylaws for building mounted signs. So we sent that to the building department so they're aware of that. They were probably already aware of that, but just to make sure it's on the record. So the variant, the special permit is for a, I believe it's a 30-inch by 62-inch long donut stand sign that's not illuminated. There's existing gooseneck lights on the building already that will be reused to light this sign from the previous tenant had a sign in that area as well. Michael Lombardi, who is the applicant and owner of the donut stand, is now a panelist, and he has his hand raised. Let's see what else. I just wanted to make sure. The application also provided to the planning board, provided that the owner of 154 Turnpike approves of his Vinbin subtenant, the donut stand, to put the sign on the exterior of the building in accordance with the plan. And they provided, Mike Lombardi, the applicant, provided a picture of the donut stand sign. And there you can see kind of the area cut out for the sign space for that particular lease area. And you can see the gooseneck lights that are existing there on both sides. So basically, the planning board should go through these 5 items and vote, and then discuss and determine if there's any conditions they want to forward to the zoning board of appeals, with the understanding that it's a recommendation. Ultimately, the ZBA makes their determination for this sign.
Okay. Do we want to have Mr. Lombardi speak first? And then see if the board has any questions, or
Sure.
the board go first, or,
Well, that sounds good.
okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, welcome, Mr. Lombardi.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for your consideration and allowing me to join with all of you tonight. Yep, the donut stand is, we are a subtenant of Vinbin. Vinbin's my family's business, and the donut stand emerged as a specialty donut shop pretty much outside of COVID to help us gain traction in business to our store in Southborough. So to expose us a little more and to gain a little more business, we thought putting our business's logo up on the building would help us out. So that's why we're here tonight.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
I just,
Go ahead.
thanks for coming in, Mr. Lombardi. I'm just curious. I haven't been in for a while. My kids usually go and get me grandma's meatball or the angry Italian. So I haven't been in. So is the donut stand actually in the same area within Vinbin, or is it like a separate building, a separate? Yeah.
No, that's correct. We took over a piece of the Vinbin on the inside, part of the retail floor, pretty much that was vacant during COVID. So we were trying to find ways to gain some business, and yeah, we're on the inside of the shop of the Vinbin.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I have one question, Karina. I wonder if we should ask the building commissioner to correct the record in that her letter says that I received information for proposed signage for the new public safety building. And then it says you may apply to the zoning board of appeals for a variance, and it's actually a special permit.
Yes, that first paragraph. Right. I received my bill signed for the new public safety building. For additional wall signs, I can, yes, and it's 3rd paragraph. I will point that out.
Okay. All right, so then we can just go through this 5-step, yeah. So
Do you have it?
we can share, yeah.
Okay.
The sign scale is in reasonable relation to the
Yeah.
development scale, viewer distance and travel speed, and sign sizes on nearby structures. I say yes.
Colleen's just gonna put it up again, but I agree. I would say yes.
Stein, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Yes.
Okay, number 2, the sign size, shape, and placement serve to define or enhance architectural elements of the building, such as columns, sill lines, cornices, and roof edges, and do not unreasonably interrupt, obscure, or hide them. I would say yes to that statement. Mr. Mills?
I would abstain.
You would abstain?
Stein, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Yes.
Number 3, the sign design is in harmony with other signage on the same or adjacent structures and provides reasonable continuity in mounting location and height propositions. In materials, proportions and materials. I would say yes.
I would say yes.
Stein,
Mr.
yes.
Sill?
Houlihan, yes.
Yes.
Number 4, the sign materials, colors, lettering style, illumination, and form are reasonably compatible with the building design, neighborhood, context, and use. I would say yes.
I would say yes.
Mr. Stein?
Yeah, I'm thinking about that one. It is a little more colorful, but I mean, it's a donut shop. I'll say yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Number 5, the sign size, location, design, and illumination are not judged to be present a safety hazard to vehicular or pedestrian traffic. I would say yes.
I would say yes.
As long as I'm not really hungry, yes.
Yes, Houlihan.
Yes.
Okay. And are there any notes or conditions that the board would like to pass on to the zoning board of appeals?
I just want to be perfectly clear, so that the request is just for it to be on the building. It's not being moved out to the sign out by the road on Route 9, correct? Or the banner that sometimes, or is constantly under the lit up sign on Route 9.
That's correct. Just on the building.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good.
And just for clarification, the where I abstained, I think I normally do because on number 2, because the sign shape and placement serve to define or enhance architectural elements of the building. I get stuck on that one every time when it comes to a sign, so there's nothing against this sign. It's just, in general, I don't think any of the signs enhance the building, but that's me. That's
Well,
where
I
I
was
get stuck
thinking
on
they-
that one.
They have all those little windows that are perfect place for
I
a sign,
know.
the little
I know.
outlines. Okay.
Can
Very
I
good.
ask one question? Michael, do you know, can you tell me when the zoning board meeting is?
I
Hearing?
believe it is July 20th.
That's it, right? Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I
Very
appreciate
good.
it.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we can send this off to the zoning board of appeals? Okay. Do you want my little accounting sheet?
Need to sign it?
That just says how everyone voted. Oh, I didn't write down Andrew's name, but he's the abstention.
I have it here.
Okay. Very good. The next is a discussion item, 154 Turnpike Road site compliance. we have anyone here from 154?
Yes, I believe we have Bill DePietri and Justin DePietri in the attendees.
Yes, Justin here, and I believe Bill's here too on another computer.
Okay. Do you want to update us on this one, Karina?
Oh, sure. I'll just pull this out. So, recently, it was found that at 154 Turnpike Road, also known as White's Corner, Mr. DePietri, who's owner of the property, had been doing some removal of the existing landscaping there, and changing of a majority of the light fixtures on the exterior light poles that are there. Back in 2018-19 timeframe, I believe Bill DePietri came forward with a modification for a driveway access between 144 and 154, which had been built there without the modification. And upon starting the public hearing for the modification, withdrew without prejudice and was going to put back the site into the condition that it had, you know, in compliance. So some curbing was put back and grass was put back and Jersey barriers were placed there. But there were some initial issues. There were some lingering issues already for a while now about a 6-foot PVC earth tone fence that was supposed to be on the southern perimeter based on conditions of approval when the site was originally approved. So if you are modifying landscaping or the lights, typically you have to come back for modification to do that. So what I did is I emailed Mr. DePietri at the beginning of June outlining the concerns with the current removal of the landscaping that wasn't replaced where the access driveway had been cut in and loomed and seeded. The 6-foot tall PVC earth tone fence hadn't been installed. And then the light fixtures were changed to LED lights. In addition, there was the removal of a public shade tree on a scenic road, which is Breakneck Hill Road, without a scenic road stone wall or tree removal permit from the planning board. It's a very visual site. A lot of traffic goes by there. The neighborhood is always very attuned to things that go on there. So I sent Bill that email and Bill responded, and I pointed out code to him so that he could reference those sections. And also at a prior planning board meeting, planning board asked me to request that he attend this meeting on July 11th in order to speak to some of these, to these items that appear to be making the site plan in non-compliance, that he's not following that. Let's see if there was anything else to add. The planning board had also asked me to draft a letter that will be going to the building commissioner in response to these concerns that the planning board has with site compliance issues, which, depending on the discussion this evening, may still happen if the planning board decides for me to take that path. But I felt that if Mr. DePietri could speak himself to some of these items and the planning board could respond, it's more direct communication. Perhaps some of these items can be mitigated. So here we are. Mr. DePietri's attending, and Justin is your son, right, Bill?
Yes, Karina.
All right. Thank you for coming, and I'll give the floor back to Mimi.
Does Colleen have the list of the areas of the code where this is not in non-compliance?
Yes, there's an email.
Shared up on the big,
There's an email in the Dropbox, Colleen,
okay.
dated, should be June 13th, 2022, 0613. So basically, this is the email I sent in black writing, and then Bill responded in blue, and then I re-responded in red.
Okay.
And there are five, I believe there are five items that we were discussing. So the first one was that the current removal of landscaping. And Bill indicated that they are re-landscaping due to traffic safety site issues. New trees are on order due within 2 to 3 weeks. So, you know, if I would guess that if landscaping is returned back to what was approved with the site, that it's kind of a refreshing or replenishing. But if landscaping changes and the types of plants changes, that would be a modification.
Okay, and what was the date of the email, Karina?
This email was originally it was June 9. So I sent the email June 9th, and Bill responded the same day. And then on June 13th, which was a Monday, I wrote my red comments citing the code for his reference, and some attachments there showing a site plan that I had on file, the original major site plan approval decision from 2003, the 2019 letter from the building commissioner, notice of violation, when the driveway access was cut through between 144 and 154 Turnpike Road. There was a specific condition that indicated that there was to be no vehicular access between those two sites in that manner, to avoid putting traffic on, to avoid putting traffic onto Breakneck Hill Road.
Good evening, Mr. DePietri. Mr. DePietri, does someone want to speak to the removal of the landscaping?
Yeah, we're gonna take these one at a time, Mimi.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're on number 1, I assume? Number 1?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear a response. So we are in the process of redoing the landscaping. Some of it was site distances, some of it was the type of tree that was originally planted, the salt from the winter spray along Route 9 ended up killing a lot of trees along Route 9. So we ended up replacing those with a I'm trying to think a native tree that's more salt tolerant along Route 9 and along Breakneck Hill Road. There was a dead tree, quite a large dead tree in the corner of the driveway on the entrance to Breakneck Hill Road on the northern end, on the north side of the entrance. There were limbs falling. was 90% dead. We did not know that Breaking Hill Road was a scenic road. Unlike other towns, Southborough doesn't indicate which roads are scenic, so we didn't know what other towns. There's writing on the street sign that says scenic road. Had we known, we would have gone before the town, but it was a safety issue. That was the only reason why we took down the large tree.
So do you know, Bill, in November of 2021, an arborist evaluated that tree and reported it was in good condition?
No, I'm not aware of that.
So I'd have to push back on the dead. And also, whether it's a scenic road or not, public shade trees require a hearing before removal.
Well, it's not in the public way. It's on private property. So I don't, how's it fall under public shade tree?
It's within the right of way.
I don't think it is.
Okay, so if you can prove that it's not within the right of way, then we can end this discussion.
Well, I can't prove it today, but I can show you it after.
Okay,
So typically, Bill,
Believe me, I would have loved to have the town take it down. Trust me.
yeah, Bill, when this type of situation occurs where there's two kinds of things that happen here. So Mass General Law says that if there's concern, if a tree is on private property or not, if it's in the town right away or not, that you err on the side of the town. But again, that's if there's actually no record of where your property line is. So what I've done in the past, and the planning board can tell me if they agree with this process, is your surveyor would provide a stamped letter certifying that the tree is on private property and not straddling, touching, or in the town right away. Because those are the the criteria.
Yeah, I mean, the branches were definitely overhanging the town property, but the tree itself, I believe, was completely on our property.
Yeah, I think we based that on at the ground,
Yeah, correct.
It's over the, yeah.
And listen, we're not in the habit of taking down trees. I mean, if anything, we plant more trees than are required.
well, you took down all the trees on the site.
Well, but we're also putting the ones back that are more salt tolerant and that look better.
So do you have an updated landscape plan?
No, we're putting them basically where the other ones were. We basically just cut down the tree, ground down the roots, ordered new trees. The new ones came in last week or the week before, and we were in the process of our planting. I mean, some are not exactly where they were. Some of them were kind of closer. We're spreading them out a little bit more. But I would say it's going to be substantially what the plan had before.
So I would want to see an updated landscape plan. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. Yeah, to ensure that you're in compliance.
Yeah, I have no problem. We'll do a plan, and we'll submit it to the town. That'll show where the old trees were and where the new ones are put in. We'll basically overlay it over the existing plan that we submitted way back when.
Yeah.
2003.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate that the trees that are going to go in will be replacement trees. Unfortunately, we didn't get to hear the talk tonight on urban forest management plans. But from what I understand, one way to think about this is for some of these large trees to try to replace, you're never going to have if you would take down, for example, a 3 or 4 foot dead tree is dead, or it just gets taken down, that you try to replace that size tree with smaller trees. So if it's a 24-inch, you put 2 12s out, or if it's 40 inches, you try to, at least replace it with the size of the one that you've taken down. That's my first question for you, Bill.
Okay.
Especially for that big one, are you going to try to replace it with maybe some more trees?
Yes, not in the exact area, only because around there is the irrigation well and the transform for the building. So there's not enough room to put a bunch of trees in one area, so we'll have to spread them out a little bit.
Okay, and then I'd be interested to know what type of trees. So I also appreciate that you mentioned you're looking for trees that are a little more resilient. But just in recently speaking, with an arborist, and one thing that we don't have in our town is a tree inventory, but hopefully we'll get there one day. And the idea would be is as trees come down for whatever reason, that we have sort of an inventory of trees that we would like to see on properties around. And that, they shouldn't be trees that are like, easily, they might have, disease. I think something like Norway maples that grow really fast and tall, but don't have a huge canopy. They're sort of on the no, list. And that sort of
They're
thing.
not allowed to be planted. in
Is that right?
Massachusetts. Yeah, they're invasive.
Oh, okay, they're still getting planted around, I guess.
They're on the list.
Oh, okay. So you
They're in our
can't-
bylaw.
You can't buy Norway with maples. But I just, for that reason, I'd be interested to see what you've chosen. We don't have an arborist that can help us with that, but I think that's something that we kind of are hoping to get to. But it's very interesting to me that you've chosen some trees that are more resilient.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you, we didn't just arbitrarily pick a tree. We actually spoke with the nursery that told them what the situation was, that the trees along Route 9, that the salt from the winter traffic ended up basically covering the trees and they slowly die. So he gave us a couple of suggestions. So we didn't, trying to not have the same situation again happen.
Thank you.
So are we, I'm trying to be thoughtful and make sure that Phil doesn't go out and get all these trees, put them in, and we find that, hey, these don't meet the plan, and now you gotta take them out or put something else in. And are we asking for him to come with a plan? Don't put any more trees, because I drove by today, Bill, I saw that there were some trees in, some new ones. And I hate to be, that we're in the situation where 3 weeks from now, trees aren't on the list, or because they were suggested by a nursery, Bill thought they were okay, they don't match with what the town actually wants, and then we're hashing out, well, now he's gonna pull out other ones. So I would be in favor of it if we could, Bill, I don't know if you've got them already being delivered tomorrow or not, but I would suggest that we hold off until we get the list of what's going to be planted and we can approve them.
Yeah, Jesse, I'm not sure where we asked. Why I asked Justin to kind of jump on the call with us. He's deals more with the field operation. So maybe if Justin could speak to where we are with the planting of the replacement trees.
Yeah, so the first 6 trees that came in were put in along Route 9, and then we have another 8 actually being delivered tomorrow. That were going more along Breakneck and down the west side of the property.
And what type of trees are they? No?
I can pull it up here.
Justin, did you say 36 were already planted?
No, six were already planted, and we have another 8 coming tomorrow.
Oh, 6, because I thought you said 36.
No.
6.
And the tree type is Acer, Rubrum, Armstrong, Freeman maple.
So that's a red maple, which are not salt tolerant. And it sounds like it's a cultivar, which are non-native.
What trees were pulled out there?
They were Bradford pears.
Which are horrible, so I'm glad those are gone.
Right. I will agree with you on that one. Not a good tree of choice, I'll tell you that.
I think they're listed as invasive every state south of us.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I would agree with Andrew that if you reduce landscaping, it requires a modification of the site plan, which is the same procedure as the original site plan. If you are saying that you're replacing either the same number or more, we would need to see that landscape plan in order to determine whether a modification is required.
yep.
I can have the plan ready by the end of the week. An updated plan.
And to Andrew's point, you plant at your own risk if you're planting things that are not going to be approved by this board.
Do you agree with that?
Is that understood?
Yeah, I don't want to put trees in to take them back out again.
So
I'd like to ask the planning board, would this plan need to be stamped by a licensed land surveyor? Not a land surveyor, landscape architect, I'm sorry. Would the plan? I'm sorry,
Yes.
okay.
So the trees that he listed already that are coming in, are those on the list that we'd want?
So it sounds like the trees that were planted, A, aren't salt tolerant, and B, are cultivars, which are not native, and we require native trees.
But we are in agreement that they're better than what was there.
It sounds like they're not in compliance with what we're looking for, but better than those horrific Bradford pears, yes. Okay, what's the next?
So can I just ask a question? If those are the trees that are staying that are already planted, the 6 red maples, it's kind of an open-ended thing here because they're planted, they're better than what was there. Would the planning board object to those
Stuff to say without
remaining?
seeing
We have to see the plan.
the rest of the plan.
Okay, based on the entire picture, okay.
I mean, I would at least, for the 6 that are planted, I could understand letting those stay, provided the rest of the plants or trees that are going to be put in are all compliant. But the new ones that are coming in, I would suggest you don't put them in.
Yep,
Right.
that's fine.
Or I'm sure you got somewhere else you could put them.
Yep.
Okay,
So I just want to be clear, though, that a modification to the plan through town code 174-10.h will be submitted for us to review, which our next meeting is August 1st, correct?
well, so a landscape plan will be submitted to prove that there's not a reduction in landscape, which would require a modification of the plan. Okay. Number 2.
I just got one more question before we move on, number 2, sorry. If the code requires 16 trees and we had 18 trees, and we don't want to go above what the code requires, is that an issue? And let me just tell you why. Part of the problem is a lot of these trees are planted very close to one another. And they look great when they're small, but as we know, in time, the trees end up growing and getting big and they end up choking out one another. So I'd like not to be in the same situation another 10 to 15 years from now.
So you're saying that you want to plant less trees that were on the original plan?
But, so the original plan had more trees than were required by code. And some of these trees were planted like within 10 feet of each other, you know, which caused part of the problem. So we're trying to spread them out more, and you can't, when you spread them out, you don't have enough room to fill in the same number of trees, but yet it's still compliant with the code. So the code might have called for 16 trees along Route 9 and Breakneck Hill Road, and we planted like 18 or 20.
Well, so the reduction in landscaping would be a reduction from the approved plan. So in my mind, you're obligated to do what was on the approved plan or more. If you want to do less, that would require a modification of the site plan. That's how I see it. I don't know what the other board members think of that.
I mean, it sounds like we're coming before the board anyways, correct?
Well, not necessarily with a modification of the plan.
Oh,
If you come back with just a plan and say, okay, this is what we took out, this is what we're putting back in. See, with no, we're making it whole again.
okay.
But
I'm with
now
it.
what you're suggesting is, from the original approved plan, you're suggesting to reduce it, and it might be for a good reason, but then we'd have to have a modification to the plan
Yeah,
after we looked at the new landscaping plan.
yeah. Let me see how the plan shakes out, and then I'll let Karina know on that.
Okay. Number 2. Karina, are you reading?
I can read it. Want me to read it?
Yeah, sure. Number 2 is landscaping related to landscaping not installed or placed in accordance as promised to be done after you withdrew your 2019 application for modification to site plan for the non-compliant driveway access that was installed between 154 and 144 Turnpike properties. So if you look at the site plan bill from 2003, the landscape plan, there was probably, there's landscaping proposed there, and now there's just grass.
Yeah, I think there's, hang on a second.
Will your proposed landscaping plan address that area?
Yes, I think there's 2 trees that were taken out of there.
Where is that? On the south side?
It is on the southeast corner.
Southeast corner. Oh, connect over by 144.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no, I think there was 2. It looks like there's 2 trees removed.
yep.
It looks
Okay,
like there
so-
were more than that on the approved plan.
No, I'm looking at the approved plan. Just where those 2 parking spaces are.
Where
If
the
you-
where the passageway was.
Right. If you look at the parking along the southern property line, if you go all the way to the east, those last 2 spaces, there's 2 trees. It might only be 1, actually. I don't know whether there's 2 gone or 1 gone, but whatever was there, we'll make sure that it's on the new plan.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Number 3.
Oh, well, I have one
Oh,
question.
sorry, Andrew.
Also, right there, I think the curbing was never raised back up at that spot. Are you gonna fix the curbing there?
Justin, can you speak to that? I'm not,
So the passageway, the drive-through that was taken, that we took out the brick. I believe the curb was still depressed and we have Jersey barriers up. I think there was a complaint. Someone said there was tire tracks between there. That wasn't from, it wasn't from driving cars. It was from the landscapers. They were using the lot at 144 as lay down.
Right, but to discourage people from doing that, I think if you put the granite curbing back up to the height of the rest of the area, you know, to the west, it'll be harder for people to drive up through there. I know that you're talking about putting a tree there, but aesthetically, it should all be consistent.
so the, what is it, what is that? That's slope granite there?
believe so.
I believe it's sloped granite, but then it was dropped flush when we did the brick drive-through.
Yeah, so they can raise that back up again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, because those Jersey barriers are obviously being moved.
Yeah, and if you zoom into the plan, if you have a chance to look at it, it does say sloped granite curb in the
Yeah.
original site plan.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Any other questions?
So just real quickly, just to make sure we're on the same page, the site plan, the landscape plan from 2003 shows, let me just get there really quickly. In that area, yeah, there's 1, 2, 3 trees in that immediate area. And I'm assuming, Bill, that, like you said, the rest of this new landscape plan will address the remaining perimeter. And
Yeah,
also near
yeah.
the building, right? So there were shrubs removed a lot in, near the building that were closer to the building.
Yeah, there were some shrubs removed and some new shrubs put in.
So the plan that you'll be submitting will be addressing all that.
Yeah, it'll
As a
show
landscape.
where stuff was removed and where stuff is, well, is either added or is proposed to be added. Yep,
Okay, thank you.
yep.
And we're all set on that one?
Someone pulled down the, yep, okay.
So what you're seeing, there's the landscape plan from 2003.
Yeah, that's the same one we have. Yep.
Yeah, good.
Actually, yeah.
And Bill, when you provide this landscape plan, can you include a plant list, a
Yes.
plant table?
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
That's the next one.
so Colleen, can you put that email back up?
Hey, wait, hang on. Oh,
Hold
no,
on, back
I would
up.
say, can we just go back to that plan for a minute?
That's not the plan we have.
It is.
It should be.
It's because Jocelyn, that was one that Karina sent me.
Oh, okay. I had that then.
Yep. Karina, just as you were taking on that plan, I saw a note about the PVC fence, but I can't see it. You got to scroll down a little bit. Yeah.
Up along the,
I think it's on the right. Yeah.
proposed PVC fence. Yeah, I think the line goes all the way across.
Yeah, I don't think it does. I think it was meant to go, I mean, because there's no houses there, so it was meant to go along the back, and then we agreed to put some on the western side of that island, yeah.
Yeah, you talked about that, and the condition itself says along the southern perimeter. I believe it says the entire southern perimeter. And I think where you put a couple panels up on the south side of the driveway there. And if you had some kind of documentation that, supports your feedback that says at the time of the certificate of occupancy, the building commissioner allowed you to reduce the fence. I'm not sure that they have that jurisdiction to change a site plan like that. So it's up to the planning board to determine. If
Yeah, I mean, actually wasn't a building commissioner, it was the town planner at when we met. And if you look, it doesn't show I can't see it because hang on. It doesn't show the fence turning the corner, but yet we did turn the corner.
Yeah, it's hard to tell from the plan.
Yeah, it is. And then what supersedes, the plan or the decision?
That's
mean,
a
what if
good question.
And I'm just saying it because, I mean, why would we have run the fence along the whole southern property when there's not a house over there? And I know that we got it like 2 sections in, and then we ran it either 1 or 2 sections heading north to basically block as much as we can from that house that's to the west of the property.
Yeah, let me look real quick here for a second. I'm just looking at my own plan so I can
Yeah.
see what's going on. Yeah,
Can
I
you
see
zoom
it.
in a little bit more in that corner?
So there is a house back there.
No, so I don't think it runs all the way. There's there's a thick black line that's touching to, which stops at that, like the third space, the second space.
Yeah,
And it does look like it actually turns a 90-degree coming down a little bit.
Is there a legend anywhere that points to that line type? I mean, I know what you're saying. I see that as well.
Yeah, it's a little bit thicker and it makes like an L. I'd have to look at it on a PDF. It's a little bit blurry on this.
Yeah, and the tree symbols kind of line up there at the same time because
Yeah,
is there a key on that plan, Justin? Sometimes they have a key, and I don't, probably not, I wouldn't think he would have it on there. I mean,
I don't
can
have-
tell you that the immediate property to the south is owned by 144 Turnpike Road. I believe it's about 150 feet wide, and then after that, there is a residential house. But I mean, it's heavily wooded.
so in the condition of approval for the 2003 site plan, it says that add a 6-foot PVC fence and earth tone along the entire southern perimeter. And it appears the plan doesn't reflect that. And the decision references the site plan, a landscape plan. Let me see what it says here. Sheet L1 dated October 15th, 2002. So if we look at the landscape plan, here, just taking a quick peek. That was dated October 15th, 2002. So there's a discrepancy. If that line type is what the fence was supposed to be, there's a discrepancy between the plan and the decision. And I don't know how that goes. I'll have to look in the code to see if,
So sheet 2 and 2.1 of the plans say see sketch for landscape fence and screening. But I don't see where that sketch is. I don't know if we're missing a page of the plan or.
Can you look left at all to see? Yeah, right there. So what are there, 2 sections on the southern border, and are there 1 or 2 on the west? Looks like it's 2 and 2. Yeah, 2 and 2.
2 and 2.
Yep.
So it looks like we need some additional research on this one to figure out.
Or it's proposed with the site plan modification where he removes the fence. And submits it with his landscape plan. Or request.
Yeah, I think, I agree, it needs a little bit more digging to see what's supposed to be there.
Yeah.
You know, from my point of view, like, if you put in the fence now and try to extend it, it looks like we might, it's gonna look ugly. It's gonna, you have to go around trees, or trees that have to be taken out to go straight, which I would not be in favor of.
Yeah.
In the end, it's my view, personally, my view is that either, we haven't gotten complaints from the neighbors. on this, or at least I haven't heard any, but it's again, going back to where cars were cutting through from the one parking lot into the other one, making sure that that stops and not with just Jersey barriers, but something that, you know, if it's lots of trees there that you can't drive through, that'd be my preference. So that, you know, something permanent that they couldn't go around or anything like that, raising the curb.
Yep.
And then, you know, if there is a discrepancy between the two plans, you know, we can work with Karina to see if we can work that out without a site modification. Would be my preference. I don't want to
Okay.
make them do it. Like if we all agree that it'd be better to have trees than a fence. That'd be my point.
Andrew, are you
True.
saying if there's additional plantings across the area where the driveway had been cut in between the two properties, you're saying if that's filled in more, your opinion is it's better to have that than a fence, you think?
Oh, yeah, I'd rather, because my concern is if we demand a fence, because, you know, it said it on the plan, now we're gonna have to take out trees or it's gonna look hideous. The thing's gonna be all jagged and trying to get around the trees that are already there and established. You know, I'd rather have, you know, 6 trees right there where Colleen has, you know, the image up, and, you know, substantial sized trees that between the two parking lots instead of a random fence as well. I think that would be more aesthetically pleasing. And it sounds like Bill's planning on putting a lot of trees, or needs space to put trees anyhow. So if we can, you know, work with Bill and come to agreement without a modification, I think that would benefit everybody.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm in agreement with that. Jesse, what do you think?
I'm in agreement.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree as well.
All right. We're all in agreement with that one. Next.
The next item number 4 is in regards to changes to the light. And I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, that the light posts are the same, but you switched out the fixtures to, not on all of them. I saw one of them still had kind of the carriage light look near the driveway on the west side.
Yeah, it was on back order.
Oh, okay, so you're planning to make them all these LED light fixtures where the light points down?
Yeah, so what was there was a gas lantern type of fixture with a high pressure sodium bulb. They were not dark sky compliant. I don't even know whether they had it back then, to tell you the truth. It might not even been a term. But in any case, difficult to get parts for. The lenses fade over time, and the amount of light that's actually lighting the parking lot was becoming an issue. The light salesman came out and said that they have these, not a replacement, because I don't want to call it a replacement head, but it's a new type of fixture. It's similar in keeping with that style. It is dark sky compliant, and they are LED, and they would, you know, provide a better light than what was originally installed there. And we didn't know, to tell you the truth, that the lighting bylaw had changed. I mean, if you even look at the town's website, it's still, I don't think it still shows a new one that Karina sent me.
It's there, it's in the code now. You have to wait for the Attorney General to approve it, then it gets put in, but it's in there
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. I mean, these were ordered, I'm gonna say probably 6, 8 months ago.
I think we need the specs, right? So we just need the specs. So as we bring in the landscaping, the specs on the dark sky compliance and the type of fixture it is.
Yep.
And if they've told you it's dark sky compliant, then it should be compliant. I think we just need to see that when you submit your landscaping.
No
plan.
problem. Yep.
And the what is it? Color, temperature,
Lumens.
Right, well, it's blue light, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
blue
the
light
cor-
compliant.
Correlated color temperature.
Liquid color temperature, that's what it is.
So if it is dark sky compliant, that is a comprehensive, so it should cover that.
Okay,
But I think we just need to see that to make sure.
Yeah,
And I
we
think
got the
as
cut
long
sheet.
as it's the same, Bill, you're replacing the exact same locations, you're not installing more.
Correct.
Then
We're
the
not
original
installing
plan.
anymore. Yeah, we basically took the existing head off the pole, left the pole, and put these new replacement heads on.
Okay. So if you can supply that spec sheet, I think that would.
Yep.
okay. Anyone else? Anything, Jesse?
No, thank you.
Okay, so the spec sheet on that one?
Last one's a big tree in there. So
Oh, so the last one is the removal of the public shade tree, which we already talked about. You said that was on your private property and not a public shade tree, so you were going to get a surveyor to sign a plan certifying that that was on private property and not in the right of way.
Correct. And it's so and if I'm wrong, tell me, but like I said, the branches definitely overhung the right of way.
Yeah, I don't think it's not the branch, it's the
trunk.
the trunk.
The trunk itself.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not based on the crown. It's not on the-
Okay.
Yeah, so it was right on the road, so either there's no right of way there or it was in the right of way.
Yeah, I tried to look at the landscape plan, but I don't know how accurate it is. I want to, pull out the civil plan and
So
then get the guy out there.
a question to the planning board is if it is determined that the tree is touching or is on town right of way, would Bill be required to submit a scenic road stonewall removal application after the fact in order to mitigate? Or would that be a discussion as part of the landscaping plan and the lighting fixtures, if it is an issue with mitigation of sort?
I think you're probably right, Karina, that we would want the application and then we could,
Thank you.
oh, so that would have to be a hearing.
Yeah, that would be a public, so maybe we cross that bridge when we get to it. If Bill
Yeah.
supplies a letter that does certify that the tree is on private property, then it's a non-issue. But if the letter comes through, if your surveyor finds that it's not on private property, then he could anticipate possibly
Yeah, there.
a
so
scenic
there-
road tree removal application.
There's the dead tree. Okay, so it looks like we have a way forward. So
Yep.
a landscape plan, specs on the lights.
just to be clear, the landscape plan isn't just going to be trees, it's going to be all, I know there were a bunch of bush shrubs removed from in front of Ola,
Yep,
and so it's going to cover everything, correct?
correct, exactly. Yep.
Okay. The specs from the lights, the certification that the tree is a private tree and not a public shade tree. Did I miss anything? Yes, yes, yeah. Anything else?
And the fence, we're just gonna talk about it at the next meeting, I guess, depending what, and provide potentially some additional trees.
Yes.
Okay.
trees blocking where people are cutting through the two parking lots.
Yes, yep, yep. And Karina, when is the next meeting?
It is August 1st. August 1st,
Yeah, all right.
and then August 22nd.
Why don't we, if there's room, if we can get on for the first, and if we're getting close, I don't think we'll have it. I think, I don't see an issue getting everything ready well before then, but worst case will have to be pushed out, but can we sign up for the first right now?
We'll put you on the list.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, have a good night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Bill. Thank you, Justin.
Bye.
Yep, thanks.
Next, School Street stone wall.
So if you would like me just to say that at the last planning board meeting, you wanted me to draft a letter to the select board informing them of the concerns of the stone wall there. Haven't had a chance yet, but it's in the queue. And once I get that drafted, I'll circulate it to the planning board members so they can take a look before we submit it to the select board. Correct me if I'm wrong, if that wasn't the intent.
Sounds right.
Okay.
Yep, yes.
Yeah, there was also mentioned a letter about the trees on near the library at the St. Mark's Street. Was there something? No, it wasn't the trees, the stone wall there as well. I think you wanted a similar letter about that potential infraction. Am I remembering that wrong? There was another stone wall that you wanted me to send a letter on. There were
That
two.
was very interesting, and I have a photo of that, Karina, that I think came from the St. Mark's Working Group, but I don't think I mentioned it here at this meeting. Did that come up in another?
I don't remember that, but I don't.
I'll look
remember.
back. I'll look back at the video. I think there was a second letter, and if so, I'll draft that one as well. If not, then.
Well, I'll be happy to send you the photo that I have. I have a before and after photo.
Okay,
There was a historic, small stone wall right at the curve along the public way. It looks like it's in the public way. So you can kind of take a look at it.
and that was on, was it on St. Mark's Road?
Yep,
Yeah.
it was, yep, St. Mark's Road.
Okay, that's the one I think we're remembering. Yeah, and they're both stone wall, St. Mark's. Stone wall. Okay, thanks, Debbie. Thank you.
Next up, National Grid tree vegetation maintenance tree removal.
Colleen, are you prepared to speak to that?
I think so.
Okay. And I can jump in if you want.
So we had heard, this was the email that was in the Dropbox from National Grid, and they basically told us that, this is the right one, that their legal counsel had told them that this doesn't apply to them. I mean,
Can you put on the Zoom?
yeah, let me see if I can find it.
I mean, I know I can turn around, but anyone who's in the public on Zoom. So they can see it.
So this would be their National Grid's legal opinion. We sent this off to our town council, Attorney Callum. He did not agree with this. You know, without going into too much detail, he thought what we were requesting was reasonable and fair. So,
And we were requesting that they follow the Scenic Road tree removal procedures that are required by Mass General Law and also the town of Southborough. And in reading National Grid's attorney's rebuttal to that. Town council said he did not agree with their rebuttal, and thought that going, requesting a vegetation management plan was a good way to go.
So
And-
this is, I can read it to the public. This is our town council's response. He said, "It is my opinion that National Grid's lawyer's opinion is incorrect. The statute applies to maintenance of a road that includes cutting and removing of trees within a scenic road right of way. National Grid's opinion is that because they are not doing road work per se, the statute is not applicable. In my opinion, that view is overly narrow and not in keeping with the letter and spirit and intent of the statute. In my opinion, trimming of trees that are within the right of way constitutes maintenance of such right of way. Accordingly, the statute applies. I think the plan to employ a yearly management plan for scenic roads to be reviewed by the planning board is sensible and fair." So we have not gotten back to them yet, but we did, Karina reached out to, or I did, we both did, to Mark Purple and asked him to request that, have a talk with the board of selectmen, who is right now considered the tree warden. And they have a designee who is Chris Leroy in the DPW. And he is doing, legwork, but the tree warden is the select board. So it seems that we had a couple of back and forth emails and then.
Well,
today-
Colleen, don't confuse it with the list of scenic roads. The National Grid plans, right, for scenic road trees, different from the residential requests to have trees removed off of scenic roads.
Right,
right,
I'm sorry, I'm
so-
confused now.
Yeah, that's okay. I had to think about it all day. So the goal is, you're on the right path, Colleen, because it's the, we were gonna ask the planning board if they wanted us to send an email to the select board, that the planning board is on board with the select board requesting, as a tree warden, requesting a vegetation management plan from National Grid, which is included in MGL, that a tree warden, that they shall, National Grid shall provide one if the tree warden requests it.
Requested, and the tree warden being the select board.
Correct. And a hazardous tree removal plan, two plans.
As well, right, and that
Right.
way, on an annual basis, the select board would be in receipt of these plans from National Grid. The planning board would have an opportunity to look at them. The select board could see, all right, these streets are scenic that you're gonna work on, therefore you need to apply to the planning board, and we'll have consolidated public hearing on those streets. And then the tree warden does what he needs to do on the non-scenic roads. But it would be a good process to have once a year. And it would address these complaints of, during the year, oh, this tree's coming down, or this tree isn't coming down. We would have a solid plan from National Grid, the select board.
You got
the,
everyone
um,
nodding on this one. So.
Yeah,
Well,
So,
the
I think-
MGL does say that with National Grid, for scenic roads, it's only a planning board hearing, so it wouldn't have to be a consolidated hearing. So once they submit their plan, select board can act on everything else, and then the scenic roads come just directly to the board. Isn't that correct,
Yeah.
Karina?
Let me look.
8714 says the tree warden may request and National Grid shall submit, if requested, a vegetation management plan and a hazardous tree removal plan to the tree warden, which would be the select board. So I think we should request that the select board request from
Request
National
it.
Grid those two plans, and that the planning board be given the opportunity at a public meeting to review those plans on it for anything that is on a scenic road. Any
Just separate.
maintenance or removal.
What is
on
the section
scenic
for
road.
the scenic road?
Colleen, I
so
think what you're referring to when you thought the town warden, when the tree warden, so upon receipt of a written note that the plan has been approved or approved with modifications agreed by both parties, which is the utility company and the tree one, a utility shall be exempt from the requirements of section 30 and 5 of chapter 87, which is the tree warden's jurisdiction of a public hearing for non-scenic roads coming down. I think that's what you were alluding to. So
But I
in the-
think, but I think those sections also refer to 40, section 15C.
yes. Yes. So they're not exempt from 4015C.
We forget which one's in which, but I know we discussed where we would have just planning board hearings for the group of trees. Would that, am I confusing that with the request from the public?
Well, that's a question because in the MGL under chapter 8714 that talks about the utility and the vegetation management plan, it refers a couple times to that. At the request of the tree warden shall submit an annual vegetation management plan. And then it says the plan shall comply with local ordinance and regs. The plan shall be, and then there's timeframes. And then it says upon receipt of written notification that the plan has been approved or approved with modifications agreed by both parties. And this is regarding non-scenic. A utility shall be exempt from the requirements of 3 and 5 for the work described in the approved plan. So if it meets the, it's a little gray here. When you go back to chapter 87, if you go back to chapter 4015C, it says that when a public hearing must be held under the provisions of the section 87.3, such hearings shall be consolidated. So if the vegetation management plan exempts the tree warden public hearing, then it would just be a planning board public hearing for the scenic road.
That's,
I'm not sure.
Well, I think
that's how I understood it.
so it exempts section 3 and 5, but if you read section 3, which talks about that no person but the tree warden shall trim, cut, or remove trees, and the
Right.
tree warden shall not cut, remove, or trim trees without a public hearing, it refers to section 4015C, that those.
Right, it says, however, that when a public
Yeah.
hearing must be held under the provisions of this section, which is, and under section 15C of
Right.
chapter 40, then it's
Then-
consolidated.
Right.
Yeah,
So in my understanding, if we get a vegetation management plan and a hazard tree removal plan, and the planning board in a public meeting reviews and discusses those trees for maintenance or removal on scenic roads, that would then exempt them from those sections, which there wouldn't be if they came, 90 days later and wanted to cut down a tree that was on that plan, they wouldn't have to have a consolidated hearing or a hearing.
Understood. Okay, so as long as they're submitting an annual plan for review,
Yes,
so that's the way we work.
but I want to make sure that this board reviews those plans for trees on scenic roads.
So my question is, they come in and we got those 3 applications. There were plans in there. So who right now is getting the plans?
Well, they're not really plans, it's just a line of their
Really gonna
transmission
maintain.
line. Like, we can do anything on this line.
That's not what we're looking for today.
No, it's that exactly what they plan on doing. And they do have plans, they don't just, fly by night.
Right.
Really?
They do.
For years, like 3 years out, I think they do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I never see a tree guy out there. looking at me. Oh, yeah, that one. I was just seeing that. Right down the line.
That's usually on a numbered road. They-
Well, that's in Southborough because there are no rules.
It's just a line on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
so the bottom line is that the planning board would like us to draft a letter or ask the select board to request those two plans, the vegetation management plan and it has, based on, chapter 87, section 14.
So I just want to take this opportunity. I'm not sure I'm 100% in agreement with the rest of the board on this. Normally, I do agree with the rest of the board on tree protection and ensuring that there's a good process in place for review of tree removal on scenic roads. In this case, where we're talking about national grid and electrical infrastructure, I personally feel like we're going a little bit too far at this point. Obviously, I'm in the minority, and I'm sure the board is going to proceed with the letter, but I felt I would be remiss if I didn't voice my dissension at this time. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Jesse, you were coming in and out. So you're saying that you think we're going too far?
Just my
In this
personal
request?
opinion. I'm sorry,
You're on
can you
mute,
hear
Jesse.
me?
No, you're breaking up.
Yeah, you're kind of breaking up.
Maybe stop video.
Video, yeah.
Is that better?
Oh, there's
Yeah.
Pepper, yeah, okay.
So all I was saying was clearly I'm in the minority in my opinion that I feel like when it comes to electrical infrastructure, it's different than our own DPW adhering to a process that actually technically was already in place to begin with. I feel like we're going a little bit far in terms of requiring that National Grid submit a vegetation management plan. So just me personally, I just wanted to voice my dissension in light of the fact that I think that electrical infrastructure is a little bit different. So I'm actually, I appreciate Mr. Tallerman's point of view on this, but I'm actually more in agreement with the National Grid attorney on this. Thank you.
All right, Jesse, but just so you know, we're not requesting anything beyond chapter 87, section 14. In Mass Regulation 220 CMR 22, which requires that National Grid submit management plans to municipalities.
And frankly, you're not asking for something that isn't there.
Correct.
They're not creating it.
Right. Mr. Lick?
I just wanted to comment with respect to Jesse's point. Doing it this way, having them submit a plan actually makes life easier for National Grid in terms of maintaining the electrical infrastructure. Because what it does is it says, you go through the plan once and you don't have to have hearings. If they don't do it this way, then every time they want to touch a tree, it's a hearing. So I'm a little confused by the idea that this is going too far. This is actually making life, as I understand it, easier for the electric company.
Tim, could you just state your address? Because we're transitioning recording clerks.
148 Woodland Road.
Thank you.
I have a question about, we had gotten the requests from National Grid for this year, right, for this spring. When the select board, as tree warden, write the letter, can they ask them to hold off on any work? Or are we talking about getting a vegetative plan and a pre-maintenance plan for next year? So I think it's great that we're going to try to get ahead of the curve. That we won't have to have all these tree hearings. I think everybody, fundamentally, like that's sort of a good thing. But when will it start? If we ask them, put a letter in like in July, August, are we asking National Grid to hold off on work right now?
So my understanding is if they want to do work now, they have to submit a real application with exactly what they're going to do on what trees on what road. What they submitted was just a list of roads.
And that was only submitted because we asked Karen Aaron directed them to, with the tree issues that are going on now, directed them to give those to me. We haven't acted on anything because it requires a real public hearing. It's quite extensive.
Right. And it's my understanding that in the past that the tree warden designee walked with the National Grid rep on down the roads and what they wanted to do. And
With the planning board rep too, doesn't that state that in there as well? Or is that yours?
I don't think a planning board rep was included on this field trip, but I think that that has happened in the past, which is what we're asking for. Or what exactly you're gonna do on what road. So for now, you'll need hearings for things that you want to do in the present. And then, according to regulation, by March 31st of 2022, you have to, the plan has to be submitted for next, or 2023 for the rest of 2023.
So they have their own deadlines too, that they need to meet.
Yes.
And Colleen, your reference to the planning board being involved, that as far as being invited to look at the trees with the tree one, that's on the flow chart that was developed and accepted by the select board as part of that process. So yeah, you're right about that. There is a point in there
Right.
on the flow chart, but it's not required in any statute.
Right, but that hadn't happened in the past.
Thank you.
Right.
Anything else on this discussion item?
So the final outcome of this discussion is that we will request the select board as tree warden to request from National Grid the 2 management plans.
Yes, and that the planning board be allowed to review trees on scenic roads that appear in those plans. At a
Okay,
meeting.
okay, thank you. All right.
And the last thing on the agenda, tree protection bylaw and scenic roads.
So before you kick this off, I would like to just point a couple of things out that have happened. So we've been getting, we've received a list of scenic road trees from the DPW, and the goal is that those get addressed soon. So we reached out to Mark Purple and Select Board Chair, I believe, and Colleen drafted a very nice email describing that, you know, we would like to encourage the select board to move on a consolidated public hearing with the planning board as outlined in that flow chart that was developed for this list of trees, because we've been getting calls and emails on some of these, and it would be good if we could get that addressed. But in the flow chart, it indicates that the select board would schedule a meeting at which the planning board members would be in attendance for the consolidated meeting, public hearing. So we have this list of, I believe, like 14, I can't remember how many, 14 or so trees that the residents had called in and asked for them to be removed because they're on town property. So we received an email back this afternoon that the select, Mark Purple was asking the select board for their August 9th meeting. So if the planning board could kind of pencil that in, the select board will be advertising and posting the trees as tree warden for those locations. And they did submit a application with information on those various trees with photos. So we'll be requesting, you know, several hard copies that we can distribute to the planning board members so that they can review the information, as well as we already have a PDF. So that'll get the ball rolling. So that's a good thing. It's
It should be noted that this application is not in compliance with the approved process or the accepted process by the select board and the planning board, which says prior to an application for tree removal on scenic roads, that the trees are evaluated by an arborist.
Okay, so there should be arborist reports related to these trees as according to the process should be provided. Okay,
Karina, I'd like to just, kind of restate that I've mentioned this now in a couple of meetings. Those arborist reports, I think they go back to 2019. And some of those trees are estimated to have been dead since 2017. And it is now a liability for the town. So I can't understand why these lists of trees keep popping up and they keep rising to the top of the list as priority. But I really think that the priority should be, the ones that the arborists have said that, have already adjudicated, they've already said that they're dead. I went through the 4 or 5 tree or street reports for trees and looked at each of the trees where the arborist says, they basically, this is the arborist from Smithfield, Rhode Island, I think, used a 4-point scale, 1 being dead, 2 and 3 are in the middle, and 4 is healthy. So I went through and just looked for all the dead ones where there's like, no question, dead. And those trees are now a liability. I have, by the way, a neighbor who has 4 giant oak trees that have been dead since the gypsy moth caterpillars in 2016. What I was told by speaking to an arborist is that if one of those trees becomes like, unstable, there's a weather event, it's going to go, all 4 of them will go. And then some of the, trees around it now become unstable. So I think this is really no laughing matter right now. I think that really we should make sure that the process was followed because it was put together with good intention by the select board and with, combination with input from the planning board. And we should really just get to the arborist trees first. I mean, sure, there's more trees. There's a lot more trees. I think that's another thing that we need to do is get an arborist in to look at other trees because people in town have valid complaints. Maybe they didn't come forward. And those are, concerns also. But I think that we should not entertain those right now. I think that we should.
so are you saying that the arborist reports don't include the trees on the spreadsheet we received? I just want to make, because I don't know, I haven't had a chance to look, but the arborist reports that you looked at, Debbie, versus this spreadsheet, this PDF we have with the spreadsheet with the 20 locations, trees requested to be removed. Is there any overlap?
Yeah, I don't know. This is now the 3rd list or so. At first it was the Marty Healy asked DPW superintendent for the priority list, and there were 26, I think. And then that list turned to 28 or 9, and now you have another list, and it's unclear. I think we'd have to go back and take a look.
Yeah, and I think that there was a list of non-scenic roads that were addressed in May. At the May 31st meeting?
Yeah, the resident requests.
Yeah, the residents' request. So it's the resident request list that I'm referring to for scenic roads. So I was just curious if in your looking at the arborist reports, you noticed any of those in there.
Yeah, so I didn't, but I suspect some of them are
Okay.
overlapped. And then there might be some new ones on there too.
So we could specifically say that, we have this application, but note that we do need the arborist reports for these trees to start. But that's still separate from the issue you're talking about, Debbie, where you think there's more, there are trees that should be a higher priority for removal.
Yeah, and I think Mimi, you actually made a public comment at one of the hearings about these 79 trees. I mean, I think if select board, we're gonna, if we're gonna have a consolidated hearing, we also know not all of those are public scenic roads, right? It's a mixture of scenic and non-scenic on those reports is what we found out. But, it's not just, so what I'm saying is it's not just these 20-something trees, it's on the order of at least 80. So, if there's going to be a hearing, my preference would be to start with the ones where the arborists have already said that they're dead, So we're not having a discussion like, oh, you know, gee, the branch fell, I think it's dead. I don't think that's a good, you know, way to start. Plus, we really need to do something about these trees. The other thing I learned, which you might be interested to know, is an insurance company or FEMA may not pay for any damages done to these trees if these trees are on the list and the town was negligent in doing anything about these trees. And so that's pretty scary. And actually, that was one of the questions that I had for our guest arborist tonight, who told me that she's been involved in, you know, a couple of towns that have, you know, there's litigation going on in there, where they, you know, they didn't take down trees, but the trees were identified as dead, and the person could not get their insurance money because the town failed to act. And so she got involved in something, and she had a story along those lines. And I wanted to find out more, actually, because I'm not the expert in that. But I would think that Southborough would be very interested in that story, because we have now at least 80 trees have been dead for maybe 5 years. And we keep talking about a different list. This is now the third list of resident complaints. The list gets bigger. It's a iterative list, so it's always going to get bigger. And so we should think about getting some arborists in and also removing these old trees, like a, you know, a larger process to deal with this. But just having residents with requests, I don't think that is the way to start, but I think that should be added to the process.
Do you know the 5 dead trees? Do you know what that address is?
It is, 68.
Because
65.
oh, because 64 is on here with 3 dead trees.
Yes, I think it's across the street from 64.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what street was that? Could you say that street again?
Flag.
Oh, Flag. Okay, sorry.
So, to Debbie's point, it would be easy to dispatch those because we already have arborist reports on them. And it's hard to, you know, there's not much discussion on a
Yeah.
tree.
And then we can take any of these new requests and identify whether we should have an arborist look at the tree.
So we could, so
Well, could the select board submit another application on those scenic road trees that Debbie's referring to that already have the arborist report and just do them at the same time? Since we've already got the momentum going on the first one with a, you know, they're moving for an August 9th. Could they start that one as well, this other set of trees? I don't know, I don't want to speak for the select board, but
I would think so, because I would think it would be easy to dispatch those. Because the arborist has already evaluated them, they've been evaluated as, and we're just talking about the dead, not the other.
Right. Yeah,
removal
I have a disagreement
recommendations.
with, I had pointed out previously that there are some roads, I think Parmenter was one, maybe where there was something like on the order of 50 trees that should be removed. And some of them were alive. They maybe had a split, you know, one trunk, but then they split, so there may be less stable, these, all kinds of other things.
Or one little cavity,
Right.
Yeah.
These are, yeah, there's about 79 that are dead.
dead, okay.
so
just-
you're thinking about targeting the
They're
trees that
dead
are
means no life.
no life trees, and then there are other trees that still have something going on, but those could be addressed later.
Yeah, but, well,
Yes.
so we could address the list that was sent, one, but we need the arborist report on the ones that aren't
Mhm.
dead. And just add some dead trees and let's get moving on those. Since those are the major liability in my eyes.
Deb, could you send the list that you have identified that are truly dead? Yeah. I appreciate that, thanks.
Are those on the DPW website, Debbie?
The street, I think they're called street reports or something. like
Street
that.
reports?
I think that they may have even
Tree reports.
put all the dead trees in one report.
You know, there was a consolidation going, but it didn't have a date or anything on it. I didn't know what that was. It just appeared around December. I actually was trying to figure that out, but
Oh, maybe
It's
not.
the number, it looked like all the numbers. of trees. I didn't know, it doesn't have a name.
Oh,
I didn't know
recommended
if
tree
you did
removal.
that.
What's that? Oh, so there is a recommended tree removal, but it's,
So the
all the recommendations, even if, there's a,
So, and you have to read the fine print. This is one of the things I disagreed with about with the arborist. Is that the arborist recommended all trees that were rated as a 1 or a 2 be removed, but some of the 2s are healthy. They might live 10 or 15 years. I think the town shouldn't be spending money on that right now, but they're not in imminent danger like the dead ones.
right,
So I think that we can't really use that removal because they designate some that are, grade 1 or 2 out of 4.
So maybe, or any planning board member, the list of, we received a document from the DPW. It's a public shade tree removal form for the trees that are on the scenic road list for resident request removal. So there was a public shade tree removal form identifying the tree and then pictures of the tree and, confirming the location. That is not the arborist report.
no,
That's just the formal request from the resident to the DPW in hopes of getting that tree on the list or to get
There
a
may
tree on the
be-
list.
maybe tree warden designee notes on that.
Okay, but that's not the arborist report, so, okay. Just
But if
confirming. that.
there are, and I haven't cross-referenced that list yet, but if there are dead trees on that list of resident requests that have already been evaluated by an arborist, we don't need the arborist to look at them again.
Okay, and there's a difference between a resident calling the tree dead who wants it removed and an arborist reporting that the tree is dead. Okay, because
Yes.
the spreadsheet may only be showing the notes from the resident.
Yeah.
That where you see a lot of this tree is dead, this tree is dead. We really need to confirm it with the arborist report.
Yes, because there seems to be a discrepancy in what dead means.
Okay, so we will request that the select board as tree warden provide the arborist reports for the trees requested to be removed by the residents on the scenic road list. That is currently scheduled for August 9th, potentially an August 9th meeting at the select board.
And
That's number one.
tomorrow I'm going on a field trip with select board member Lisa Braccio to look at all those trees. So there may be some trees on there that are dead, which wouldn't require an arborist report. And some already have an arborist report that say they're dead.
Okay, so I'll wait to hear back from you if you have any changes to that. If there's any you want to, that don't need an arborist report.
Okay.
Okay, so Karina, just so I know, I'm gonna get you the list, and I've been meaning to do this for a while, from the arborist reports of just the dead trees, right? But I won't do anything with this new list. You're taking care of that.
Yeah.
Is it the tree evaluation forms?
The tree evaluation.
Okay.
Yeah,
reports.
yeah.
I have.
Yeah.
them there. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
I think the idea of that was they were targeting certain roads, because they're like
Yep,
some roads.
they have includes, X, Y, Z, Marlboro, Oregon,
Well,
Irvine, right?
I think those are all scenic roads.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are the tree removals from arborist tree reports, scenic roads.
So Marlboro, I don't think it was, because isn't that a numbered road?
Yeah, it is. That's 85.
Oregon, Parkerville, Parmenter, Pine Hill. those are
Those
all.
are-
Breakneck, Chestnut Hill, Deerfoot, Gilmore, Mount Vickery, Sears, Woodbury, and Woodland, those are all.
Yeah.
And then Flag. So only one road in those reports is non-scenic,
One road in those reports left.
is non-scenic, just Marlboro Road.
That's 85, right?
Yeah. anything on scenic roads?
Scenic roads. I am scheduled Thursday to join the Conservation Commission and hopefully appeal to them to join me for the special town meeting where we present this bylaw. And then I've been asked on July 19th to present to the Historical Commission. So I'll have both of those meetings completed in time to come back to our next meeting and let you know if we have, I'm not sure. I don't know if there's a decision that they will make to be a participant in the, all three committees bring it as the bylaw, but that is my request. So I don't know if there's a decision, but I will let you know coming out of those meetings. And then on the tree protection bylaw, Mimi, you sent me everything I needed. I have not had a chance to start the polishing on FAQs, but it's on my to-do list.
And I would just say that the previous discussion further emphasizes the need for a tree protection bylaw and to have a, clear policy and process on public shade trees.
It's easy to understand.
And with that being said, would the planning board like us to request placeholders on the warrant for October 13th special town meeting for the Scenic Road warrant article and the tree protection bylaw warrant article, and also for the creation of a revolving fund for the tree fund?
Yes.
The three.
So I
Article
believe-
1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
Need at our regular town meeting, yes.
What is the deadline for that, Karina? Are you aware?
I haven't seen a schedule yet from Mark Purple's office yet, but when that comes, I'll distribute that to the planning board and copy you, Colleen, and then we'll see how to back that out to determine when we need to start the public hearings for the warrant articles.
My deadline in my town, and it was August 17th, I'm sorry, October 17th is the meeting. August 1st is the deadline.
I would, be proactive with Mark Purple because I know they usually open it and shut it very fast so
Oh,
that
do they
they
do?
can't get bogged down with a whole bunch of other things.
That's so he doesn't probably put out a deadline.
I don't think so. I mean, all I know is it happens fast.
I think it's on the agenda for select board tomorrow, tonight to
Yeah,
start.
did I send an email with those little? Okay.
Oh, you did, yeah.
Yeah.
But just tell
Find
them.
out, call us.
Okay, onward and upward. Planners report.
Planners report, hold on. Just put this back here. Planners report. Colleen, just to digress, you have Mimi sign the extension request for 200 Turnpike
Yep.
tonight? Okay.
Yep.
All right, so there is movement within the state as far as looking to extend the deadline for remote meetings to continue. And the question is December 15th, so it passed the House. Oh, no, it passed the Senate and they're waiting. No, it passed the House action, and they're waiting for the Senate to vote on how far out they'll extend the provisions for remote hearings. So it may either be December 15th, 2023 or March 31st, 2023, but I'll keep you posted on that. If anyone has any questions on what bill it is, you can just give me a call or email me and I'll send you information. I might have sent you something already from 495 Metro West Partnership that talked a little bit about this.
So currently that emergency action expires on July 23rd, is it?
July
Or
15th.
15th?
Right. So at our next meeting, August 1st, we need a quorum in person and the chair has to be in person. And any planning board member participating remotely, which at this point will only be able to be one, because you need a quorum for the special permit for lid, right? Which is 4. So anyone of the members who wants to participate remotely, just remember, there's a form that Jim Hegarty, town clerk, asks the planning board member to fill out and get approved by your chair, and it gets submitted prior to the meeting. Okay, so for example, Jesse, if you want to participate remotely at the next meeting, we'd need to get you that form. You fill it out, have Mimi approve it, and we need to get it to town clerk before August 1st. Because July 15th is the deadline right now, unless we get notice from the state that those provisions are extended, then
That is understood. Thank you.
you're welcome. I can beat a dead horse, sorry. Okay, next thing is, see here. We talked about the town meeting deadline, special town meeting. Let's see here. We have a draft report for the open space inventory that I'm currently looking at. They'll be making a few revisions, and then somewhere in the near future, within a month or two, Lucas Environmental will be presenting that open space monitoring for fiscal year 22 to the planning board. And we'll try and pick a meeting at which, people can attend and they're around and it's not too full. And that's it. And the fiscal year budget for fiscal year 22 is closed. We are finalizing the bottom line, and we'll let the planning board know what that is. Right now, my estimate is we have about $2,300 left in the budget. So it's not bad. We've done better, but we've also done worse. So with changing over of staff, there's always a little bit of extra there. So
Good job.
we'll keep you updated. And that's all I have.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes from June 27th, 2022, as written.
Second.
I did make some edits on it, so as edited.
And I did put those up on the Dropbox if anyone wanted to see those in comparison. There were some minor changes, but relevant.
Any other discussion? All in favor, Latrell, yes?
Mills, yes?
Stein, yes.
Lehan, yes.
Denier, yes.
Very good. Next meeting, August 1st and August 22nd. Anything else? Any public comment?
Hi, Mimi. I will be absent August 22nd.
Okay.
I'll not be able to participate.
Jesse, do you know if you missed another 200 Turnpike meeting?
That's a good question. I would have to do some extensive research to make that determination, Karina. I do not know.
I'll be able to check for you. We saved the Mullins forms, so I'll look back and then we'll let you know, because if you missed one, then you won't be able to vote on that one, and we'll only have 3 members, because one is, Debbie is recused, and there's a special permit there. So depending on what happens at the next meeting, if they,
I think that just makes your case stronger for why they
Just gonna
should,
say that, what a perfect reason to withdraw.
why they should withdraw without prejudice. I can make my stuff
Okay.
unavailable for August 1st. Easy.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
In a second.
I'll second that.
So I have a motion in a second. Any discussion? All in favor, Latrell, yes?
Mills, yes?
Stein, yes.
Lehan, yes.
Denier, yes.
Thank you all.
See you in person August 1st.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen.
Bye, Karina. Have a good night.
Thanks. You